He utterly hated Dean Martin. Now we know the shocking reason why. The bitter fallout between Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin remains one of Hollywood's most memorable feuds. Their first meeting in 1945, with Lewis at 19 and Martin at 27, sparked a partnership neither could have imagined would lead to such success and eventual animosity. A chance encounter on New York streets blossomed into an entertainment sensation that saw their earnings jump from $500 weekly in Atlantic City to a remarkable $4 million yearly by 1948. Life magazine crowned them show business's highest-paid act in 1951. Yet their relationship would crumble so deeply that they wouldn't exchange words for 20 years. The roots of Martin and Lewis's feud run deep. Their debut performance at Atlantic City's 500 Club on July 25, 1946, led to quick success across nightclubs, radio, and film. Yet their relationship grew tense during their 16-feature film contract with Paramount. Many point to their different approaches to work as the cause Lewis's workaholic nature clashed with Martin's preference to balance work with golf and leisure. Yet the situation was more complex. Reports suggest Martin simply reached his breaking point and couldn't bear working with Lewis anymore. Let's explore the complete story behind this legendary partnership's collapse. Their journey spans from that first fateful meeting to their brief reconciliation that Frank Sinatra helped coordinate during one of Lewis's Labor Day telethons in the 1970s. It's a tale of how two seemingly inseparable performers drifted apart for decades. Dean Martin meets Jerry Lewis in post-war New York. The most celebrated comedy partnership in American entertainment started in the busy streets of post-war New York City. Before the Jerry Lewis-Dean Martin feud caught everyone's attention, these two performers were just trying to make it big in a tough industry. Their first encounter at the Glass Hat Club, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis met by chance at the Glass Hat Club in New York City's Belmont Plaza Hotel in 1944. Both men performed separate acts there. Stories about their first meeting don't quite match up. Lewis said they met in September 1944 and mentioned Dean had his own radio show on WMCA back then. Another story says Lewis's friend, Sonny King, introduced them at the corner of 49th Street and Broadway. They shared a funny moment over a messy sandwich. I was having a very loose egg salad sandwich, and I bite the sandwich, and now most of the egg salad was on my shirt and tie, Jerry once recalled. I look around, and there's this handsome guy sitting there, hysterical. He said, "Lick it." So I lifted the tie, and I licked it, and I said, "What else do you want?" This moment stuck with Lewis. He felt he had found a big brother and a friend right away. Lewis saw something special in Martin, beyond just their comedic connection. In his memoir, Dean and Me, A Love Story, Lewis wrote, "Men don't like to admit it, but there's something about a truly handsome guy who also happens to be truly masculine, what they call a man's man, that's as magnetic to us as it is to women." Martin represented everything the young insecure Lewis wanted to be. They kept running into each other at different clubs throughout 1945. One would often leave just as the other arrived. Things changed in March 1946 at the Havana Club. They both performed there and started crashing each other's shows with jokes. How a chance booking in Atlantic City changed everything. Martin and Lewis became a comedy team on July 25, 1946, at Atlantic City's 500 Club. The story of how they ended up performing together that night has two versions. Lewis says he suggested Martin to club owner Skinny Diamato when another singer couldn't make it. Dean told writer Pete Martin a different story. He just happened to be on the same bill, and Jerry had nothing to do with his booking. Their first show as a duo bombed. Club owner Paul Skinny D'Amato told them to improve or lose their jobs. Lewis had a family to feed and knew they needed something new before their second show that night. They threw out their script and went with their gut between shows. Martin sang smoothly while Lewis dressed as a busboy and ran around breaking dishes. He jumped on stage and interrupted Martin's singing with jokes and his famous whining voice. Everything changed with that second show. The audience loved it. News spread through Atlantic City fast, and soon people lined up around the block to see them at the 500 Club. They became an overnight success in every way. Sophie Tucker saw them perform and told D'Amato, "Skinny, do yourself a favor. Keep these guys and let them do what they're doing tonight." D'Amato knew he had something special. He moved them up the bill, making Martin the headliner and listing Lewis as an extra added attraction. That spontaneous partnership at the 500 Club started what would become America's favorite comedy duo, and later, the Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis feud that kept people talking for decades. They become America's hottest comedy duo. Martin and Lewis quickly became entertainment's most sought-after comedy team after their breakthrough at Atlantic City's 500 Club. Their chemistry was undeniable. Martin's smooth singing and suave demeanor went together with one another, with Lewis's manic energy and physical comedy. Nightclub success and the Copacabana explosion. The duo secured a 2-week engagement at New York's Havana Madrid Club for $750 weekly after Atlantic City. They landed at the prestigious Copacabana nightclub in 1948, where they performed 2 shows nightly and 3 on weekends. Their career took a decisive turn at the Copa as celebrities and industry executives flocked to see their revolutionary act. Money followed their rising fame. They started at $500 weekly at Atlantic City's 500 Club, and within 2 years commanded $5,000 per week at top venues. Life magazine declared them the hottest comedy team in the USA by 1951, as they earned $4 million annually, about $43 million in today's money. Their contrasting personas and genuine affection for each other drove their success. Dean projected effortless cool, while Jerry embodied frantic energy. These early years showed an authentic bond beneath the Jerry Lewis-Dean Martin feud that would later develop. Audiences saw more than rehearsed comedy as they watched Martin try to keep his composure amid Lewis's chaos. They witnessed genuine, spontaneous interaction. New York columnist Earl Wilson called their performances hosted confusion and noted that no 2 shows were similar. Audiences kept coming back to see what new mayhem might unfold, making this unpredictability their trademark. Unlike other comedy teams who stuck to polished scripts, Martin and Lewis trusted improvisation, which created an electric atmosphere that fascinated audiences. Breaking into radio, TV, and film, their popularity reached beyond nightclubs. They debuted on NBC Radio with The Martin and Lewis Show in April 1949. Television success followed with their first appearance on Ed Sullivan's Toast of the Town in June 1948, plus performances on the Colgate Comedy Hour and their own show. Paramount Pictures signed them to a lucrative contract after they stole the show in their 1949 supporting roles in My Friend Irma. They starred in 16 films throughout their partnership, including hits like At War with the Army 1950, The Stooge, 1951, and Artists and Survivors, 1955. Martin and Lewis stood apart from predecessors like Abbott and Costello through their relationship dynamic. Both contributed to the comedy instead of following the traditional straight man in comic roles. Dean actively joined the hilarity, rather than just setting up Jerry's punchlines, sometimes breaking character to laugh at his partner's antics. The Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis feud that would tear them apart seemed impossible during these golden years. Their performances showed genuine camaraderie. Film historian Sean Levy noted, "They really did complete each other professionally. Dean's casual charm and Jerry's manic energy created something completely new in American entertainment." Signs of the split that would answer, why did Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis break up, appeared early. Jerry took more control of their creative direction while Dean felt pushed aside. Industry insiders spotted tension between them as early as 1951, though they kept up appearances publicly. The early 1950s marked their peak collaboration. They brought fresh spontaneity and partnership to comedy that revolutionized the field. Together, they created something neither could achieve alone, a comedy phenomenon America couldn't resist, even as the Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin feud slowly built beneath the surface. They redefined comedy with charm and chaos. Martin and Lewis transformed audience expectations from comedy duos while rising to stardom. Their shows created what witnesses called pandemonium at venues all over America. Steve Lawrence remembered, "It was like an explosion when they opened at the Copacabana. You would not believe the pandemonium that existed in that club. It just went nuts. They broke every record in the house." Why their acts stood out from Abbott and Costello. Martin and Lewis brought a fresh dynamic to comedy partnerships, unlike their predecessors. Abbott and Costello's act relied on rehearsed burlesque routines like "Who's on first, oh?" Martin and Lewis took a different approach. They thrived on spontaneity and physical closeness that often turned into chaos. Most of their shows were improvisational, with Lewis disrupting Martin's singing or performance attempts. Their visual appeal set them apart. Lawrence put it simply, "This was the first time there was a comedy act that looked like this." They were very attractive-looking guys, and before that, you had duos like Laurel and Hardy and Abbott and Costello and Olsen and Johnson. Then Martin and Lewis came along, and they were just so different than any of those guys. The duo brought a new level of sex appeal to comedy. Both men's conventional good looks created what Lewis later called a sexy and slapstick dynamic. This was a big shift from earlier comedy pairs who rarely used attractiveness as part of their appeal. Their shows featured unprecedented physical closeness. One observer noted, "Dean will stick his fingers in Jerry's mouth and pull Jerry towards him. Dean actually sticks his finger up one of Jerry's nostrils to grab him. The intimacy that's there is just astonishing." This uninhibited physical comedy created spontaneous fun that older, more structured comedy teams couldn't match. The appeal of their contrasting personas, Martin's suave composure against Lewis's manic energy, became the lifeblood of their appeal. Martin embodied cool sophistication, a handsome Italian crooner who stayed composed amid chaos. Lewis represented pure enthusiasm, a rubber-faced, hyperkinetic Jewish comedian who seemed as if he couldn't stand still for a moment. Their performances played off these differences masterfully. Martin tried to keep his cool, while Lewis jumped in with voices, imitations, and physical comedy. This mix of restraint and release created comedy gold that audiences loved. Lewis understood their contrasting personas' broad appeal. Who were Dean's fans? Men, women, the Italians. Who were Jerry's fans? Women, Jews, kids. Who were Martin and Lewis's fans? All of them. This universal connection explained their soaring success. Their shows sparkled because of the joy they found in each other's company. Audiences saw genuine enjoyment in their performance as they often broke character, laughing at unexpected moments. Their real chemistry, not something manufactured, made viewers feel they witnessed something magical happening right there. The partnership that ended up leading to the Jerry Lewis-Dean Martin feud started with two performers who completed each other professionally. Lewis admitted this mutual dependence. If I didn't have my partner, I'd probably still be in the Borscht Belt doing pantomime. Martin and Lewis created something neither could achieve alone. A groundbreaking comedy act, mixing sophistication with silliness, restraint with abandon, and charm with chaos. Tensions rise as fame fuels ego. The seemingly perfect partnership between Martin and Lewis started showing cracks beneath their incredible success. The Jerry Lewis-Dean Martin feud grew gradually as their careers reached unprecedented heights. Their once complementary personalities and career goals turned into sources of conflict that ended up tearing them apart. Dean resents being the straight man. Martin's frustration grew with his role as their popularity skyrocketed. He felt that Lewis exerted too much control over their work and started planning his solo career. The contrast between their work ethics created tension. Dean wanted to perform and enjoy golf, while Jerry dove deep into every production detail. Lewis's expanding role beyond performing deepened Martin's dissatisfaction. Dean was often annoyed at how Jerry took over every aspect of their careers. According to one account, Jerry started directing, producing, and micromanaging their work, telling the director what to do, or working with the musicians what their contribution was going to be. Martin's anger surfaced when he spoke out as Jerry Lewis took over all of their activities. Their relationship reached its breaking point during the filming of their final movie, Hollywood or Bust, 1956. Martin lashed out at Lewis, saying he was nothing to me but a effing dollar sign. This outburst revealed Martin's deep-seated resentment toward their increasingly unbalanced partnership. Critics praised Jerry while ignoring Dean. The partnership suffered even more from unequal recognition than creative differences. Critics showered Lewis with praise while overlooking Martin's contributions. Lewis later admitted, "For 10 years, my partner read reviews where his name wasn't mentioned, and he dealt with it with such dignity and class." Their movie collaborations highlighted this critical imbalance. Reviews heaped praise on Jerry Lewis and claimed that he was the real talent behind the duo, saying anyone could have played Martin's part in the team. Martin's anger grew, while Lewis basked in the adulation, unconcerned and unsympathetic. Lewis acknowledged this unfairness in a later interview. "When you got into movies, things really got tough for Dean because you'd be called a genius and Dean would hardly be complimented at all. They said nothing about him in many cases." He marveled at Martin's patience. "I don't know to this day how he did it. Had the tables been turned, we'd have lasted 30 days, without question." Outside, voices amplified their growing discord. Both men's entourages planted seeds of doubt. Lewis recalled, "Someone said to Dean, 'You don't need him. Why don't you just sing and do films yourself?' And I was getting poisoned as well. What do you need him for?" The aftermath left deep scars. "I hated him for allowing the split to happen. He hated me for allowing the split to happen." The root of what caused the feud between Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin lay in this complex web of professional imbalance. Martin felt constrained by his straight man role while yearning for creative freedom. Lewis's increasing control over their work, combined with the critics' biased praise, created an unstable partnership that could not survive. They split after a decade of dominance. The celebrated partnership between Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis lasted 10 years before reaching its breaking point. The Jerry Lewis-Dean Martin feud concluded with an emotional farewell that marked the end of an era in American entertainment. The final performance at the Copacabana, Martin and Lewis took their last bow together at New York's Copacabana nightclub on July 25, 1956, 10 years to the day after their first show in Atlantic City. The date's significance resonated with everyone there, as the duo had come full circle from their modest start to their final performance. That night, the Copa buzzed with show business's biggest names, making it the biggest night in the glorious history of the Copacabana nightclub. The Copa showgirls danced across the stage with tears streaming down their faces. They knew they were part of a historic moment. The duo performed their signature acts one last time. Dean tried to sing, while Jerry disrupted with his antics. Martin stepped aside as Lewis entertained the crowd. Their offstage relationship had grown tense, but their onstage magic stayed electric until the end. Raw emotions peaked as they performed Partners from their latest film. The audience jumped to their feet with thunderous applause and cheers. Both men broke down in tears as they hugged on stage. Jackie Gleason leaped onto the stage and shouted, "Folks, this can't be allowed to happen!" Martin and Lewis just shook their heads. Their decision was final. The pair rode the elevator alone after the show, turning away anyone who tried to join them. Inside Lewis's dressing room, Jerry cried hysterically. Dean came in. They shared one last embrace, shook hands, and wished each other luck. What caused the feud between Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin? The Dean, Martin, and Jerry Lewis feud grew from deep-rooted problems that built up over time. Dean felt frustrated playing the straight man and believed Lewis was exerting too much control over their work. He started talking about going solo, which Lewis, who looked up to Martin, saw as a betrayal. Their different approaches to work created constant friction. Dean valued life balance and enjoyed golf and relaxation. Jerry lived and breathed work. This basic difference caused ongoing tension throughout their partnership. Dean resented being cast as what he called an idiot in all their movies. Critics often praised Lewis while ignoring Martin's contributions, which added more strain to their relationship. Their relationship deteriorated so much during Hollywood or Bust, their final movie, that they stopped talking between takes. Dean lashed out at Jerry, saying he was nothing to me but a effing dollar sign. The experience left such deep scars that Lewis never watched the film. Bitterness lingered after the split. Lewis later said, "I hated him for allowing the split to happen. He hated me for allowing the split to happen." This mutual blame kept them apart for 20 years. The morning after their last show, Lewis said he understood how an amputee must feel. Dean seemed unfazed, ready to start his solo career. The what caused the feud between Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin question captivated audiences for years. The answer lay in their creative differences, professional jealousy, and the pressure of their incredible success. They go separate ways and find solo success. Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis carved impressive individual paths in entertainment after their historic split. The Jerry Lewis-Dean Martin feud ended their partnership, but freed creative energies that helped them thrive independently. Dean joins the Rat Pack and launches a TV show. Martin's friendship with Frank Sinatra grew into a professional alliance that shaped his career. They formed the legendary Rat Pack with Sammy Davis Jr., Joey Bishop, and Peter Lawford, though they preferred to be called the Summit or the Clan. The group became the symbol of cool sophistication in early 1960s America. The Rat Pack ruled Las Vegas entertainment. The Sands Hotel's marquees often read, "Dean Martin, maybe Frank, maybe Sammy." Their shows brought wealthy gamblers to the city. They performed in tuxedos and mixed solo acts with what seemed like improvised comedy that often joked about Martin's drinking habits. Martin's television career soared even higher. His NBC show, The Dean Martin Show, ran for 264 episodes from 1965 to 1974. The relaxed format perfectly matched his relaxed persona as a half-drunk crooner. By 1967, he became show business's highest-paid entertainer with a 3-year contract worth $34 million. Jerry becomes a director and solo star. Lewis proved himself a powerful solo talent. The breakup left him shaken, and he later said, "I was unable to put one foot in front of the other with any confidence. I was completely unnerved to be alone." A lucky break came when Judy Garland fell ill and couldn't perform in Las Vegas. Lewis stepped in. His rendition of "Rockabye Your Baby" with a Dixie melody was such a hit that Decca Records had him record an album. The single reached number 10 on Billboard charts, and his album, Jerry Lewis Just Sings, hit number 3 with 1.5 million copies sold. Lewis's creative peak at Paramount began with The Delicate Delinquent, 1957. He signed a groundbreaking contract in 1959 that gave him 60% of box office profits and total creative control. Starting with The Bellboy, 1960, he directed his own films and created state-of-the-art tools like the video assist camera to review footage instantly, technology still used today. The Nutty Professor, 1963, became his masterpiece. French critics especially loved Lewis's directing style, and France honored him with their Legion of Honor in 1984. The public never got an answer to the what caused the feud between Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin question. Both men built their own legacies far beyond their former partnership. They reunite briefly, but never fully reconcile. The iconic comedy duo broke their 20-year silence with brief moments of reconciliation that excited their fans and revealed the true extent of the Jerry Lewis-Dean Martin feud. Frank Sinatra's surprise reunion on the MDA telethon, their first major public reconciliation, happened on September 5, 1976, during Lewis's Muscular Dystrophy Association telethon. Frank Sinatra used his influence to arrange this reunion by bringing Martin on stage without warning. Television historians later voted this moment among TV's greatest memories. Sinatra had secretly kept Martin in Ed McMahon's dressing room backstage. Jerry's son, Gary, noticed Dean earlier, but stayed quiet knowing his father hated surprises. Lewis appeared stunned at Martin's sight and whispered to Sinatra, "You son of a bitch," before hugging his former partner. Their meeting mixed awkwardness with emotion. "So, how you been?" Lewis started. Martin answered, "You know, it seems like we haven't seen each other for 20 years. Lewis responded with humor. "Well, you know, there was all those rumors about our breaking up, and then when I started the show and you weren't here, I believed it." Private phone calls and emotional moments. The public reunion didn't immediately restore their friendship. Real healing began in 1987 after Dean's son, Dean Paul Martin, died in a plane crash. Lewis quietly attended the funeral and sat in the back without drawing attention. Martin called Lewis after learning about his presence, and they talked for nearly an hour. This tragic event opened a new chapter in their relationship, though limited. Lewis mentioned they started calling each other occasionally to remember old times and talk about future plans. Their last public meeting happened at Martin's 72nd birthday celebration at Bally's Hotel in Las Vegas in 1989. Lewis surprised Martin this time by presenting his birthday cake. "I love you, Jer," Martin told the audience. Lewis answered with feeling, "Why we broke up, I'll never know." The comedy legends never appeared together again before Martin passed away on Christmas Day, 1995. Their bond is tested again by tragedy. The news of Marilyn Monroe's death on August 5, 1962, sent a shockwave across the globe, unleashing an unprecedented outpouring of public grief and media speculation. The world wasn't just mourning a movie star, it was grieving the loss of a cultural icon whose vulnerability had touched millions. The reaction was immediate, intense, and a reflection of the deep connection fans felt with her. Headlines screamed the tragic news from newsstands in New York to London to Tokyo. In the days that followed, suicide rates in Los Angeles temporarily doubled, a grim testament to the despair her death inspired. Fans gathered outside her Brentwood home and the Westwood Village mortuary, holding vigils and leaving flowers in a spontaneous display of sorrow. The media frenzy was relentless, with photographers desperate for a final image of the fallen star, cementing the tragic narrative that would define her legacy. Her death transcended Hollywood gossip. It became a global event, with figures like French writer Jean Cocteau remarking that her death should serve as a terrible lesson to all those whose principal occupation consists of spying on and tormenting film stars. The public couldn't reconcile the image of the vibrant, luminous star with the lonely, tragic end described in official reports. This disconnect between her public persona and private reality fueled the public's insatiable need for answers, laying the groundwork for the decades of conspiracy theories that followed. Amid the public chaos, Monroe's ex-husband, baseball legend Joe DiMaggio, took control. Devastated by her death, he orchestrated a small, intensely private funeral on August 8, 1962, at the Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery. His goal was to shield Marilyn from the very Hollywood circus he believed had destroyed her. In a powerful and pointed gesture, DiMaggio banned nearly all of Hollywood's elite from attending. Frank Sinatra, Peter Lawford, and the rest of the Rat Pack were famously excluded. When asked why, DiMaggio reportedly said, "If it wasn't for them, she'd still be alive." He also ensured that no member of the Kennedy family was present, a silent but damning indictment that spoke volumes. Only about 30 of her closest family and friends were invited to the service. The eulogy was delivered by her acting coach, Lee Strasberg, who tearfully remembered her not as a sex symbol, but as a dedicated artist. "I cannot say goodbye to Marilyn," he said. "She will not be glad to have been rescued from the world, but she will be glad of our remembering." For 20 years, after her death, Joe DiMaggio had a half-dozen red roses delivered to her crypt 3 times a week. His enduring grief was a quiet, constant reminder of the profound personal loss behind the global spectacle. It was a final, tragic chapter to their love story, and a stark contrast to the storm of controversy that continues to surround the mystery of her death.